I've an review Friday the 13th Part 3 from 1982, directed by Steve Miner, and of course the third film in the Friday the 13th franchise. As yes, we are back once again to discuss Friday the 13th on the channel. This time around the third entry, quite an iconic one in the series, and one that I have nostalgia for, and you know, I did see this as a kid again, and you know, really look forward to discussing this film today. But first of all, there will be a spoiler warning for this discussion if you haven't seen this film. I simply recommend seeing it first and then come back to this video, and we can go from there. We can talk about this film in the comments and all things Friday the 13th, and celebrate the Halloween season, of course, for the month. And so yes, with all that said, let's discuss my thoughts on this film. And yeah, this is one that I do, once again, enjoy and appreciate, of course, you know, in the franchise, and one that is very different to the previous two at times. And you know, it's the one that, obviously, as we know, Jason gets the hockey mask, you know, throughout this film, and that would be, you know, a staple going forward for the rest of the films, you know, the franchise. Very iconic, and really, Jason through that would, you know, lead to him becoming one of the most iconic, you know, characters really in film, really, and certainly horror films, and you know, the signature mask, and you know, certainly he wouldn't have been as memorable and as iconic, of course, if he just kept, you know, a sack over the head like the previous film. But yeah, this one, of course, did set up a lot of the franchise, and of course, it's the the only one being in 3D. You know, it's quite bizarre in that sense as well, and just some of the characters in this one and what's going on in this film, you know, it's pretty bizarre. Shelley as well, which we'll get to. You know, this character, you know, it's quite bizarre in this film, and you know, I do enjoy the character in the end somewhat, and you know, I think definitely an important character, as we know. But yeah, this one follows on from part 2, and we have Dana Kimmell, of course, playing Chris, who is a character, you know, the main character of this film, and she kind of takes her friends to, you know, her old home that she's not been to for a few years, and of course it's near Camp Crystal Lake, so it all kind of unfolds from there. And before that, we have the kind of, obviously, the recap, you know, of the second part, and showing the end of that film, and as they kind of do these films, and yeah, again, it could have been trimmed. It didn't need to be as long, and seeing the entire, you know, kind of final scenes there. But yeah, it's cool to see, you know, once again, somewhat of a recap, and then we have, you know, this kind of prologue being seeing this, you know, shopkeeper, this owner, and you know, his wife, and you know, kind of got this cute rabbit, and you know, just kind of going around. Again, this could have been shorter. You know, there's a little bit, you know, kind of just walking around too much, and you know, of course, the couple do get killed by Jason, but it sets up the film, and you know, the slightly different tone, and also the 3D in this film, which I think is mixed, really, for me. You know, definitely to praise at times, but you know, just the bit at the beginning when you know, that guy, the owner, is of course kind of just moving, you know, the pole to the camera, and it's just like he's literally trying to position it. You know, it's very obvious, and you know, what really does that add? You know, it kind of sets it up, you know, what it would look like, you know, a pole, you know, the camera, but for later in the film, I guess, but it's just kind of gimmicky at times. This the 3D in this film, we've got people juggling at times, and you know, obviously the stuff going up to the camera there. So at times gimmicky, definitely. It does later on add, you know, for some of the kills. So it is quite cool in the end. But you know, certainly in the first half, it didn't really add much. It was yeah, it was just kind of a bit silly, really. But yeah, of course, Jason dispatches that couple, and you know, gets you know, new clothes, and basically yeah, recuperates from the events of the second film, and then he's ready for more, and he goes, of course, you know, to where all these characters are, of course, with Chris, and you know, that is the rest of the film, really, him picking them off. We have Rick as well, who's this character who, basically, you know, Chris's boyfriend, who doesn't see her all the time, so you know, they kind of, you know, they kind of embrace, you know, each other in that sense, and you know, they've been apart, and you know, there's different characters that have got, you know, some relationships, of course, and yeah, just. It's generally the same sort of kind of vibe, you know, as the second film at times, but it is a bit different. We have more of a backstory specifically to, you know, the main character related, you know, directly to Jason, where of course, you know, Chris has had this kind of run-in with Jason before. She's kind of trying to get over this still in that sense, but doesn't really fully remember, you know, the events of this. But it was an attack, and she describes the man, and it is obviously Jason, and we see, you know, at one point in the film the kind of flashback to this, and you know, it's quite scary the way it's done, actually, and I think Jason in this film, the way it's done in the final act, you know, then the last couple of scenes when he's at the window and all this, you know, that was really scary, and just some of the way, you know, he dispatches of some of the characters in this film, you know, I think it's definitely, you know, more scary than the previous two in that sense, and you know, when he does get the hockey mask in this, that is just so cool. But yeah, the first act is kind of introducing the characters again. Obviously, Larry Zerner playing Shelley, who is one of the more memorable characters in the film, not necessarily the best character, you know, in cinema, but you know, one that, you know, kind of you know, is quite strange, and you know, the pranks that he plays, you know, throughout the film. You know, at one point he pretends to be killed as well, and you know, that does lead to the kind of later on the kind of foreshadowing, you know, of that. And you know, I think just in general the setup for the characters, it could have been better. It's a bit generic, and you know, it's more, you know, relies on, you know, them playing pranks on each other, and you've got some weird characters as well in the van with them who are just, you know, smoking weed the whole time, really, and just completely, you know, out of it really. And you know, I think that was quite strange. They didn't really add anything to the film. They were just kind of in the background, and you know, just in the van with them, and you know, when they get to the house and stuff, they're just kind of there, and you know, they do get obviously dispatched later on in the film, but yeah, we've got a bit unnecessary characters really. I think Tracie Savage, you know, as Debbie in this film is fine. You know, not the most interesting of characters, but you know, she was there, and she was at times enjoyable, and we do have as well, you know, Paul Kratka playing Rick, you know, in this film, who I think was definitely better than, you know, a few of the characters in this. Rick and Chris really are the ones that, you know, the most developed in this film, and they do have, yeah, more of a backstory and more of a history, of course. And you know, I think most of the other characters, other than Shelley, because he does play, you know, quite a role later on in the film, and he is, I guess, memorable, you know, in this one. Most of the other characters are kind of throwaway at times, you know, not really that interesting, not as charming either as some of the films in the franchise, but it kind of is redeemed by the final act, and I think just the way in which Shelley has that role, you know, there with the hockey mask, of course, you know, him playing pranks, you know, on the group, and then he wears this hockey mask, and in the final act, Jason obviously, you know, at that point he doesn't kill him, but he does, you know, kind of wound him, and you know, almost kill him there, and he takes the hockey mask, of course, and he wears it, and that is the rest of the franchise really, is Jason wearing, you know, a hockey mask, and you know, it's really, really cool, and quite, you know, it's quite strange how it is, you know, Shelley that does this, you know, this kind of prankster character, you know, not really, you know, kind of interacting with the group in the same way, you know, he's kind of an outcast more, you know, does get at one point rejected as well, and you know, his wallet gets put, you know, in the river there, and just completely, you know, everything goes wrong for him in the final act, you know, and he gets killed, of course, at one point, and he gets, you know, the hockey mask stolen. But you know, so I think it's kind of you know, ironic that it's, you know, him that leads to this, and it's not just Jason, you know, wearing this from the beginning. It is just, you know, he picks up this, he takes a shine to the hockey mask, and that is his signature, and he gets attached to this perhaps, and you know, yeah, that is the rest of the franchise, and you know, it is really cool. And for that final act where it is more tense and him really chasing the characters, and it's all going down, it's fitting that, you know, that's when he gets the mask, and it's just really cool there. And Shelley, you know, when he comes into the house as well, you know, at one point, and his throat has been cut, and he's almost dead there, you know, that was really cool. And you know, at first, you know, characters thinking that he's again playing pranks, you know, on the group, and you know, it's obviously not at this point, and that was really cool the way it was done, and it kind of linked back to the earlier points in the film. Some of the unnecessary points though include this gang that kind of attempt to harass the group, you know, in the shop, as we know in that first act, and they kind of, you know, just really silly kind of moment, you know, in the shop for me, when they kind of pick up Shelley, and they kind of steal the wallet at first, and all this kind of stuff, and just really strange there. Didn't really fit, you know, the film, the music, the way that was used as well, you know, the kind of main title music there, in a sense. It was, yeah, it was kind of, it was funny, but it wasn't really something that fit the film, and it was just, I think those characters, when they get to the barn and all this, and they come back to the house, and they kind of, you know, break in and stuff like this, that was just, again, it was a bit unnecessary. They didn't really need to be in the film. The only cool thing really is when the main member at the end, you know, is still alive, and you know, he does kind of try to, you know, get Jason there, and he gets his hand cut off, and you know, it's quite a cool death, and all this, and it was cool to see him return. You know, it was definitely, you know, my favourite of the three. And obviously, it's a funny scene when, you know, kind of Shelley, you know, runs over the motorbike, you know, and stuff, and gets his own back, you know, once they've smashed the window. But it was just more of a bizarre kind of set of characters that came into it, and they didn't really need to be in the film in that sense. But yeah, we have, I think the film kind of picks up as we go throughout. You know, it gradually gets better and better. I wasn't really too big on the first act overall, you know, and just the way the characters were in this film at times, they weren't that, you know, interesting, and again, they're not as charming as some of the films in the franchise for me. And I think it's really, it picks up again. It's redeemed definitely by that final act, because it is quite tense, and it's quite epic to see Jason really, you know, in full swing. Also, the kind of walk from Jason at times when he's walking up the steps, you know, from you know, the kind of the water there, you know, that was quite strange. You know, it's very strange walk in this film, but you know, it's more just funny than anything, and you know, he is still menacing. You know, he's a real presence in this film, and I think just very well portrayed in this film, and you know, the way he kind of is set up, you know, in the first bits with the shop, you know, the owner there and killing that couple there, that was quite cool. And then just the way, you know, throughout the film, especially in the final act, he does emerge as, you know, the true Jason that we all know, you know, in the franchise, I thought was really, really cool. I think Richard Brooker as Jason, you know, is definitely very effective in this film. Definitely one of the better portrayals of Jason in the franchise. And yeah, Steve Miner directing this film. Obviously, he did direct part 2 as well. And you know, I think it is solid direction. They definitely had a vision to this. Interestingly, it's kind of it was noted as, you know, potentially going to be, you know, the final film, you know, in this trilogy, and that would be the final one. But you know, because of the success and all this, you know, they did make more. So kind of interesting, because it is, you know, in a way, kind of, if you didn't know that kind of fact, it's kind of like it's gearing up for more sequels and kind of trying to solidify, you know, a franchise here with, you know, Jason, the way he kind of gets the hockey mask and different tropes coming into this, and the whole kind of event of being a 3D film and all this. It's really, they're kind of amping up a lot of the kills. Some of the kills in this, you know, are better than a lot of the films in the franchise, and definitely stand out, you know, kills and stuff, and different things that are going on here. It's more franchise-esque, you could say, in setting up different films. So the fact that it was going to be potentially the final film in the franchise is quite strange. Whether or not that was truly the case, or they did kind of suspected that they would do more, I'm not really too sure on that. We can't really say, but certainly done well. And again, not critically well received, but yeah, it's a film that obviously done well at the box office, and you know, it's definitely well divisive at times. It's definitely one of the more popular films overall in the franchise, and I can see why. It's certainly one that has a lot going for it. I think, yeah, some of the characters are not great in this one, and it's a bit, at times, generic here and there. You know, the whole gang, you know, kind of subplot in the film didn't really work for me, and I think just, it's not got some of the best, most enjoyable characters and setup in the franchise, but you know, I think it really picks up in the final act, and it becomes a film that I did once again enjoy. And you know, I think especially just for Jason, of course, in this film, and you know, the hockey mask Jason really come into play here. And you know, I think Shelley, the kind of way in which his character, the arc, you know, culminates. You know, he's rejected, he's quite sad, you know, in a kind of you know, I think in a very one-note kind of way, but it's a character who, in that sense, I do kind of feel sorry for, you know, when he's, you know, kind of the way it ends for him. You know, he gets rejected, he gets his wallet thrown in, you know, the water there, and then he does get killed as well, you know, in the barn. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of sad for him, and I did feel something for the character and the role that he played in the film. It was definitely significant. So yeah, definitely, I guess one of the more memorable characters. You know, just. A lot of the characters aren't too stand out to me. You've got Chris, you've got, you know, Rick as well. They were okay in the film, you know, I guess. They were quite enjoyable at times, and there was something going on with them. But generally, this is not some of my favourite batch of, you know, kind of characters here. And, you know, the final girl in this film is not, again, one of my favourites in the franchise. You know, I think there's some weird moments going on as well. You know, the tone when she kind of comes out of the house there, and the police are kind of, and stuff, consoling her. You know, it's a bit... wasn't very convincing, the way, you know, that was executed there, that whole kind of scene. But you know, I did really enjoy as well, you know, the moment when we have the kind of dream sequence, if you like, with Jason at the window, and you know, just looking in. That's something from, you know, when I was a kid. You know, I've always been disturbed by faces at the windows and stuff like that. So that was again, seeing it, you know, it's really scary to me, and just seeing him running down, breaking through, running down to the lake there. But you know, I think as well, you know, so it's quite a weird, wacky moment we have. Of course, Jason's mother, you know, Mrs. Voorhees, kind of all, you know, gross there, and she comes out of the water, and it's kind of, you know, pulling the character, a nod to the first film, you know, the ending there, and you know, that was quite strange, more kind of fan servicey, but it was funny, and yeah, I think the final scene itself was quite cool. So yeah, no, I think really the final act is the standout, you know, act of this one, and it's, until that, it's not something I'm too big on really. It's you know, it was one that I was enjoying at times, but overall it was a bit underwhelming, and you know, I think it gets going in the final act, and it kind of redeems itself, and just Jason himself throughout, you know, that's the main highlight of this film, where elsewhere it's not really as memorable, as, you know, kind of stand out, and as enjoyable, and you know, kind of the visuals to this film are definitely not as good as the first two for me, you know, personally, and you know, I think definitely some, you know, interesting moments in the score, but again, it's not quite the same thing, you know, as the first two, the more tranquil, you know, mystical feeling, you know, of those two films. You know, the score comes into that, and the visuals. Obviously, this one being in 3D, it does as well. You know, the way it's done in this film, it looks a bit strange at times, and it's a bit off-putting. It doesn't look as good as some of the other films, but you know, I think, yeah, I guess in the end it was kind of cool what they've done with the 3D with some of the kills, but you know, definitely throughout it was inconsistent, and it did kind of take me out of the film, and you know, just it was a bit laughable at times, and you know, just a character kind of putting a pole up to the screen, people juggling, all this. It wasn't the yo-yo moment as well when he's kind of yeah, doing it there, and it comes down to the screen. Again, these are just kind of gimmicky moments. I guess some people will enjoy that, but for me, I've never really been big on 3D at all throughout my life, and I guess this is not the worst of 3D, but you know, it's definitely something I could do without though, seeing the 3D, but there it is, you know, it's in the film, and you know, I think it's just something I accept really, and yeah, I think overall, this film, you know, it's an interesting one. You know, I think it's definitely got better kills than quite a few of the, you know, franchise and, you know, films in the franchise. I think the way that Jason is done in this film is definitely, again, one of the better versions of him in the franchise. Some of the tropes as well in this, you know, nicely done. And I think just other than that, though, you know, there's definitely some things that are not as good as quite a few of the films, you know, in the franchise. And I think the characters and the way it's done at times, it's not as interesting, and it's not, you know, as enjoyable, just that kind of escapist feeling really, and you know, I think just some unnecessary subplots in this film and elements to this, and I think despite that, you know, I think it is a film I enjoy overall. It's just a bit more bare bones enjoyment, and you know, I think it's more for Jason himself, you know, just throughout, you know, his presence, and just the whole kind of way in which we have the origins of, you know, the true Jason with, you know, the hockey mask and all this, and some really cool kills, and just the final act in general is tense, it's thrilling, and you know, it's quite epic in places, and that's when really the characters, some of the characters that before that weren't, you know, really doing much, were more, you know, pivotal in this final act, and Shelley especially, you know, his involvement, you know, in that, and you know, just a bit more invested in, you know, some of the characters just, you know, really before they get killed in this, dispatched. So I guess, you know, it's definitely a mixed bag at times, this film, but overall it comes together in the end, and you know, I think it's not, you know, necessarily one of the best films in the franchise, but I do enjoy it, and I think I did take this over some of them, of course, and you know, I think it's definitely an okay film. And so my rating for this film is a 60% dead on. You know, this one, it could have been better, I think, at times, but you know, it's definitely an okay film that I enjoy, one that has got a lot going through in the final act, and as I say, until that, you know, it was a bit more of a mixed bag, some weaker points in the film, and you know, definitely, yeah, some enjoyable moments with the characters, some charming, you know, campy fun, but really, it's the second half where it really picks up, and especially the final act where things come together more, and it's a bit more, you know, engaging for me personally, you know, as a horror film, and just with some of the characters as well, and you know, I think definitely commendable direction. The 3D to me, I could have done without, as I say, and it was more gimmicky than anything, but it did, I guess, lead for some enjoyable kills, some kind of epic moments, you know, in the final act, and you know, I think just, yeah, in general, the ending to this film is quite cool. So that's really my thoughts on the film. You know, it's the one that doesn't quite, you know, compare to the top tier, you know, the franchise, but it has got, you know, signature moments, and you know, I think just certain moments in this I really, really enjoy, and you know, really epic to me personally, you know, as a fan. So yes, I think you know, wrapping up there, that's my thoughts. What do you think? It'd be great to hear, you know, of your thoughts in the comments, of course. What do you think of this film? How does it compare for you to other films in the franchise? And what's your personal experience with this film? You know, I saw this when I was really young again, you know, as a kid, and you know, that was, you know, 2, 3, and 4, and obviously 1 even earlier, and you know, I think after that, it was, you know, just a few years ago really that I saw 5 onwards going forwards, excluding Freddy vs. Jason. So really nostalgic memories of this. Kind of brings me back to my childhood, and you know, I saw this, yeah, a couple of times then, and so it's nice again, you know, for that element to see the film, and it'd be really cool to discuss this film and you know, your experiences with this franchise in the comments. So yes, as always, take care, and thanks for watching.